Today we honor all of the saints. For us, this is the solemnity of All Saints' Day. And so for us, we today think of all of the saints. And likely for most of us, we've had different saints that have reached out to us at different points in our lives. Different saints that have jumped out, different saints that we've gone running to, who have helped us when we've been in need, who have pointed out the pathway to God, who have been there to share our joys. Different saints all along the way. And they are part of our family. They're the communion of saints. They're part of our family. And so they care about us and they want to help us. For me, I'm so glad, right, over the years, it's amazing thinking back, how many saints that I've bumped into or that have sought me out. When I was first kind of taking my faith more seriously in high school as a teenager, you know who inspired me the most? It was St. Francis of Assisi. Reading his story of his life, how he gave up everything in a radical way just to give his life to God. And he inspired me to want to try to live more simply, to try to live poverty in some kind of way, right? A great saint that, for me anyway, was the kind of the first saint that really spoke to me. And then as well, other saints along the way. St. John Vianney, who's the patron for parish priests. He would sit in the confessional for 10, 12, 14 hours a day and more sometimes, hearing people's confessions, being someone who would give the mercy of God that we all need in our lives. In our church, there's so many saints. They're everywhere, right? You look around, they're everywhere. Maybe you don't notice that much going out on the back right. St. Anthony of Padua, right? St. Anthony, he's the one that whenever I pray to him, he always answers me. And I think it's because my grandma loved him and she prayed to him all the time. And somehow, I don't know, right? That he knows that she's my grandma, and so he feels obliged to listen to me. St. Therese of Lisieux, who's on my left looking back. Her as well, like a great saint who was there. I only got to know her when I entered seminary and was there. She was a great light just to help me through those years of seminary life. And so many others, and I'm sure you could tell stories too of different saints who have helped you. So today, this is the day that we honor them, all of them together. And not only those saints who we know about and who we are famous like throughout the world and who we can name, all of that, but also, I'm sure, right, there's many saints in heaven who we don't have all of their names. They don't have a particular day in the church calendar where we honor them. There's many martyrs who we don't know their names, right? They died as true witnesses, but without maybe having their names recorded or becoming famous. And so today is the day that we honor all of those saints, all of them in heaven. And it's an amazing thing to think of those unknown saints who aren't named, right? Who are they all? Who were they? I'm sure there's many great faithful parents, right? Many parents, many grandparents, many young children who died, we would say too young, but who now are in heaven enjoying the presence of God and being with all the saints and angels. We can think of people of all different professions, right? Like blacksmiths and like doctors and farmers and laborers, like maybe even Tim Hortons employees, right? Hopefully some of them have made it to heaven already too. In heaven, there's this vast array of saints, of those who love God so much in this life, that now they are with him forever in heaven. For us, that's a great sign because we too hope to follow in their footsteps. We too hope to be with Jesus forever in heaven. We're trying to live our lives carefully and well so that we may be worthy of such an end. For us, another thing to think about, and it's a good thing on this day, is to think about what is our mission as a parish, right? I mean, you could say many things, right? What is our purpose? What are we here for? What are we here for? You could say a number of things. One of the things that I would point out is that this church is here, our parish, it's here to help us to become saints. Our church is here to make saints. If we're not making saints for the glory of God, for the church, for the world, then what are we doing, right? That's our goal. That's what we're about. That's what we're striving to do and what we got to try even harder to do, what we're always trying harder to do. And so when we think of ourselves here, when we think of the people around us, we can look at them in that way. This is someone who I'm trying to help to get to heaven. In your families, right? The people that you're with every day, people you're trying to help each other to get to heaven, to be saints, to deal with the darkness, the challenges, the weaknesses inside of us, to beg God for his help and grace so that we can be better, so that one day we can be worthy of heaven. You know, it's something that it comes up every once in a while. I try to think of it when I'm talking to some of you, to think like this could be another Saint Therese. This could be another Saint Anthony or Saint Joseph or any of them, right? That this right before me, like those saints, they went to their priests. They looked to others for help. And we're kind of living the same thing. In the confessional, thinking, right, that the saints, they all went to confession. They went to confession regularly, a lot, even up till their death. They went regularly. And for me, just thinking too, all of them, right? St. Teresa of Avila, St. John of the Cross, they regularly went to confession. They would kneel down on a kneeler just like that, and they would confess their sins, begging God for his mercy and looking for grace so that they could be renewed in their lives. What an awesome thing to think about. Our little role, our part in this mission of God, of making saints. I want to point out just a few things in the witness of the saints that they can help us with, a few areas that maybe they can remind us, where they can reach out and help us. And just before I do that, I encourage you, read about the lives of the saints. It's a great thing for our spiritual reading to pick up books that describe the life of the saints, because by learning about them and their lives, we learn how to live, we learn how to be, we learn how to pray, we learn how to talk to God, we learn how to help each other more. The lives of the saints are a real treasure to be able to read about these holy men and women. And so, how can they help us? Lots of ways, so many. But I just want to mention a few. In terms of our minds, right? If we think of our heads, our minds. The saints can help us so much to have the mind of Christ, to learn the teachings of Christ and to love them, right? Not just to have our own opinions, which all of us have, but to have the mind of Christ. St. Paul talks about that. We want the mind of Christ. St. Thomas Aquinas, he's one of the great doctors of the church, doctors in the sense of teacher, who was able to summarize our faith and explain it so well. And he's held up by the church, by various popes, as a model for understanding the Christian life. We can think of St. Augustine, we can think of St. Teresa of Avila, but in other ways. St. Catherine of Siena, so many of the saints are there to help us to understand our faith, to understand so we can have the mind of Jesus. One of the ones who can help us in another way, where we see someone who came under persecution, even from church authorities, from within the church, St. Joan of Arc, right, who's a saint. She struggled a lot with church authorities, but yet there she was, even in her death. She was a woman of faith, right? And it's because she had the mind of Christ. She didn't leave the church, she didn't run away, but she understood what was happening, and she remained faithful to God in the midst of it. A great example. Also in terms of our hands, right? Our heads, our intellect, all of that, but then in terms of our hands, we are to have, like Christ, a special love for the poor and for those who are in need. We can think of St. Vincent de Paul, right, and the great example that he set in caring for those who were in need. We think of, in the gospel today, the Beatitudes, which outline for us what a Christian life should look like. These aren't just ideas like that Christ said when he was thinking out loud, but these are all of them. He lived them, right? He's the first example of the man of the Beatitudes. But then for us, we too are striving to live these out in a visible way in our everyday lives, to be men and women of the Beatitudes. So many examples. St. Thomas More lived it out in an awesome way. St. Cecilia, many, many saints who we can look to for the Beatitudes, caring in a special way for those who are in need. Also then our hearts, right? Our hearts. For each of us, we, like the saints, are striving to have a heart of prayer, a heart of a mystic, of someone who is seeking to be very close to God, especially in prayer. We can learn so much from the saints, St. Teresa of Avila in particular, St. John of the Cross, two of the towering mystics of our faith. Think about it, right? Many men and women give their lives to God as monks, as cloistered nuns. They leave the world and they go into that little piece of heaven on earth, their little community, for one purpose, really, just to pray. To live their whole lives dedicated to prayer. What do they do all day? When they're praying before the Blessed Sacrament, when they're praying in the church, what are they doing, right? What's going on in their mind and in their hearts? It can't be empty. Sometimes we might think, well, like prayer, we get distracted, it gets to be boring after a while. We can have those experiences, but there's more to it. We can learn how to pray better. There's men and women, holy ones, these great saints, who would say, right, that the prayer is the joy of their life. They get so much from prayer. They want to live their lives hours every day dedicated to prayer. That's not just for them like they're some kind of elite special class, but it's open to all of us. God invites all of us to be men and women of real prayer, who can know him and be united to him and benefit and know and feel the benefits of a real life of prayer. We learn St. Peter Julian Aymard. We learn from St. Louis-Marie de Montfort, who preached the devotion to Our Lady, consecration to Our Lady, and many, many more. In the book of Revelation, which we had as our first reading today, it spoke about this vision that St. John had of heaven. You wonder, what's going on in heaven? What are they doing? He sees this vision of Christ on the throne and all the saints and the angels gathered around him in adoration, worshiping and adoring, united to him. What's awesome about that is that this is what prayer is, right? And our prayer here and now is a preparation for heaven. In order to fit into heaven, we have to be souls who are close to God in prayer in this life. So our head, our hands, our heart, and then also our feet. We see in the saints that they go out into their community, into the bigger community, even to different parts of the world. They go out as missionaries who want to share the message of Christ, the gospel of Jesus Christ. They care about the salvation of souls, and they make it their own part, their own energy, their own effort to go and to make a difference. So many missionaries, St. Francis Xavier, St. John de Brebeuf and the Canadian martyrs, those who came here to bring the faith to the native peoples here, they risked their lives, right, in coming to this new world where there weren't roads, there weren't communities waiting for them, but going to search them out and find them, to share with them the gospel of Christ. St. Damien of Molokai. We think of another example, which is, in her own unique way, St. Therese. She was in her convent. She never left. But yet I believe she's one of the patron of the missionaries. And the reason why was because through her prayer, she was united in supporting the work of the missions throughout the whole world. Her eyes and her heart were so big, such an awesome example. For us, today, we celebrate All Saints' Day, where we remember all of these saints. We try to bring them to mind, to be inspired by the example and to learn from them. They made it. They lived their lives in such a way here and now so that they could go to heaven and be with God forever. They are our greatest helps and aids for how to be close to Jesus and how to get to heaven. Today we ask their intercession and we look to them to help us. In the name of the Father and of the Son,